I repeat the basic approach. The first step is underlining the keywords from the question and the question stuff to have a rough idea about the context, right? The context is the steward, what helped Stewart with the stages in making his training film for the museum employees. So that's the context, and for better understanding of the context, it is better to come up with your own guesses, right? So if you have a responsibility to make a training film for the museum employees, what could help you to find a location? For example, as we have just come up with our own guess, like friends might help us deciding on equipment, an expert suggestion, writing the script, might get help from the student who is attending film school, casting director, one of your acquaintances might be a casting director who could help you. Filming, yes, again, if I were in this situation, obviously I will get help from the expert who has a lot of experience in filming. Editing is obvious quality for any film enthusiast, right? Enthusiast, so film goer, okay, who are always interested in films, would definitely, you know, spontaneously get the editing skill. So done myself, editing done myself. Any these options are absolutely have come from our own ideas, my own ideas. They may or may not be in this box, they may or may not be part of this options, but better to come up with your own guesses. And of course, it is better to underline keywords as well from these options. Advice from friends, information on a website, being allowed extra time. Being allowed, it's not you allowed extra time to others. You have been allowed by others to have extra time. Please understand. Okay, so this is kind of passive voice, being allowed. You are being allowed extra time. Meeting a professional filmmaker, yes, we have just discussed. Good weather conditions, getting a better computer, support of a manager, right? Help from a family member, work on previous assignment, okay. What you have actually did, these are all related to you. What helped Stewart? Yes, what helped Stewart? Okay, finding a location, deciding on equipment, and all. We have already checked these things out. So let's listen to the audio now. As I have emphasized, I have always been emphasizing to go with more than normal speed. Let me go with 1.1 speed at least.
Recording 69. You will hear a tutor and a student discussing a project the student is working on. First, you have...
So how about the audio buddy? Is it really loud enough? Guys. Is the audio is really clear enough? Loud enough? Roshni?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let me continue.
Recording 69. You will hear a tutor and a student discussing a project the student is working on. First,
you have some time to look at the questions. 20 to 30 seconds.
At
the first answer is about finding a location. Please remember the secondly you're going to listen
right,
deciding on
Stuart.
equipment.
Well, I've read your draft. Right, Stuart. Well, I've read your draft report on your work placement at the Central Museum Association. Sounds as if you had.
So you must have understood it's a conversation between two people, because section 3 is a dialogue between two or more number of people, like section 1. Section 3 consist dialogue or conversation between two or more people. Section 2 and section 4 are monologues, lectures. So as this is section 3, you will listen to a conversation between two people. Okay, Stuart. And again, there is another female voice.
An interesting time. So you ended up making a film for them?
Yeah, it was a film to train the employees in different museums in the techniques they should use for labelling ancient objects without damaging them. Some of them are really fragile.
Okay. So in your report, you go through the main stages in making the film. Let's discuss that in a little more detail. You had to find a location.
Okay, so he has actually drafted the stages, and that draft was observed by this, this manager or something. See, she's actually asking questions, right? And Stuart is answering what he faced in each of the stages, right? Discussion between these two about the stages the Stuart experienced in filmmaking for museum employees.
Somewhere to shoot the film.
That took quite a few days because I had to look at different museums all over the country, but I'd allowed time for it. And even though it was the middle of winter, there wasn't any snow, so I didn't have any transport problems.
Right.
So finding a location, which option would be correct, buddies? Being allowed extra time, or any other? Okay, listen right from the beginning again.
Yeah, it was a film to train.
Right, Stuart. Well, I've read your draft report on your work placement at the Central Museum Association. Sounds as if you had an interesting time. So you ended up making a film for them?
Yeah, it was a film to train the employees in different museums in the techniques they should use for labelling ancient objects without damaging them. Some of them are really fragile.
Okay. So in your report, you go through the main stages in making the film. Let's discuss that in a little more detail. You had to find a location, somewhere to shoot the film.
That took quite a few days because I had to look at different
That's so quite a few days. Okay, it took more number of days. Okay.
museums all over the country, but I'd allowed time for it. And even
I would allow the time for it. He was able to allocate time for that. But C is different, giving different sense. Being allowed. Somebody has given him time. Being allowed. He was allowed to have extra time. But in this case, what you have just listened is he has allocated extra time for that. The time was not given by somebody else to him, as per the stuff what you have just listen it again.
In a little more detail. You had to find a location, somewhere to shoot the film.
that took quite a few days
That took quite a few days. It took too many days.
because I had to look at different museums
I had to look at different museums.
all over the country.
Okay, all over the country.
But I'd allowed time for it.
I would allow the time for it. Okay, I was able to allow the time for it.
And even though it was the middle of winter,
Even though it was middle of the winter,
there wasn't any snow.
there wasn't any snow. Okay, which means weather conditions are in favor for him, in favor of him. Right? Good weather conditions. Even in it is the middle of the winter, there was no snowfall that disturbed his work. Weather conditions favored him, right?
Look at different museums all over the country, but I'd allowed time for it. And even though it was the middle of winter, there wasn't any snow.
There wasn't any snow that could obstruct his work, disrupt his work.
So I didn't have any transport problems.
So he hasn't faced any transport problem. So he was able to find a location so well.
Right. Did you have to decide?
That's why in good weather conditions, finished. Any doubt with this, buddies? Guys. Let's move on to next.
What equipment you'd need for the filming?
Yes, I think they were quite surprised at how well I any transport problems.
Right. Did you have to decide what equipment you'd need for the filming?
Yes, I think they were quite surprised at how well I managed that. It was just the luck of the draw, actually. I'd done that
Luck of the drawer. Luckily, I was able to decide the equipment easily. He was able to decide the equipment without any hassle. That must be, I was so lucky for that. That's what he's saying.
project with you last year.
Oh, on recording technology? So you knew a...
Surprised at how well I managed that. It was just the luck of the draw, actually. I'd done that project with you last year.
Oh, on recording technology?
Okay, I have done that project with you last year. That is recording. Okay, he did a project on recording technology last year. Okay.
So you knew a bit about it from that, right?
Okay, you knew a bit about from that. So for equipment, he is fully aware of it because he has previous experience. Right? He has a previous experience.
Any snow, so I didn't have any transport problems.
Right. Did you have to decide what equipment you'd need for the filming?
Yes, I think they were quite surprised at how well I managed that. It was just the luck of the draw, actually. I'd done that project with you last year.
I have done that project last year with you.
Oh, on recording technology?
On recording technology.
So you knew a bit about it from that, right?
Yeah.
Knew a bit about that.
What I found really hard was actually writing the script. I had a deadline for that, but the association had to extend.
What happened to deciding on equipment? Have we missed it?
Right.
Yeah. What I found really hard was actually writing the script.
So you knew a bit about it from that.
Okay, we listened that he has a previous experience. He has done a project last year with her, under her might be. So previous experience, which option is giving such sense? Work on previous assignment. So I is the correct one. Okay. Next.
That's right.
Yeah. Project with you last year.
Oh, on recording technology? So you knew a bit about it from that, right?
Yeah. What I found really hard was actually writing the script. I had a deadline for that, but the association had to extend it. I couldn't have done it otherwise.
Would it have helped?
Oh, yes. Another difficult task is writing the script. So the deadline was approaching. He couldn't manage it. So association has extended time for it. Okay. So he was allowed to have extra time. Please listen to it again.
What I found really hard was actually writing the script.
So he found writing the script is really hard.
I had a deadline for that,
I had a deadline for that writing the script, a deadline date.
but the association had to extend it.
But the association had to extend it. The deadline was extended for him. So he was allowed to have more time.
I couldn't have done it otherwise.
I couldn't do it otherwise. I couldn't have done it otherwise if association had not extended the time. So he was allowed to have extra time. Allowed, was allowed, being allowed. See. Right, buddies. Next.
Would it have helped if you'd had some training there?
Okay, she's asking, would it be helpful if you had a training related to writing the script? The next is actually casting, but this is maybe unnecessary information.
I think you're right. I probably needed that, yeah.
Right. Now, from your draft report, it sounds as if you had one or two problems deciding who was going to actually appear in the video.
The casting, yeah.
Problem in casting. Who's going to be acting in the video? About the casting issues. Let's listen what he says.
I'd expected that the people who worked for the association would be really keen on taking part.
But
he has actually expected the museum people would take in part of casting, right? So they are going to act in his film. That's what he expected. The current laborers, the current workers are going to actively participate in casting of the film. So that was he expected.
I'd expected that the people who worked for the association would
who worked for the association are going to act in the film. That was his expectation.
be really keen on taking part.
But they weren't.
The thing was, they were all so busy.
All the people who work for the association had been busy, so they haven't part of the casting.
And it did mean some of them had to travel.
And some of them had to travel.
But Janice King, who I was reporting to,
Janice Kane, who I was reporting to. Who I was reporting to means superior. His superior. Who you generally report to your superior. Right.
But they weren't.
the thing was, they were all so busy. And it did mean some of them had to travel. But
it did mean for this casting, some of them had to travel.
Janice King, who I was reporting to for
her name is Kane something, she said.
But they weren't.
The thing was, they were all so busy. And it did mean some of them had to travel. But Janice King, who I was reporting to for the project,
which means reporting superior, has helped him.
Oh, she was great. She arranged for people to have time off. And
she organized the people to time off and act in his movie, in his training film.
For their work to be covered. She arranged for people to have time off and for their work to be covered. So that was a big help for me.
Right. And it sounds...
That was big help for me. Casting her reporting manager helped. Reporting superior. Where is reporting superior? Support from manager. So she hasn't actually articulated any manager but mentioned who I was reporting to. She's great and more helpful. Support of manager. That's D. Right? Next, filming. What happens? Let's see.
It's like the filming itself went well. I gather you found a company who provided an online introduction to the techniques.
Yeah, it was really informative and very user-friendly.
So in case of filming, a company has actually helped him. Let's listen.
Who provided an online introduction to the techniques.
Yeah, it was...
Okay, for filmmaking techniques, he approached maybe an organization and learned from them.
I gather you found a company who provided an online introduction.
Okay, there is a company who actually gave online introduction for this filmmaking to him, to Stewart. Right, there is a company who provided training, introductory training for this filmmaking for him, Stewart.
And to the techniques.
Yeah, it was really informative and very user-friendly. I learned a lot from it.
And then the editing?
Yeah. The company had actually helped him. Advice from friends, information on your website, being alone, meeting professional, good weather, getting better computer. Work from family member, work on the previous. Where is it gone? A company. Is it online introduction? What she said?
Help for me.
Right. And it sounds like the filming itself went well. I gather you found a company who provided an online introduction to the
Online
techniques.
Yeah.
Online introduction means definitely website. It's an online introduction that he has acquired. Okay. Website was not articulated by the speaker, but online introduction, definitely website. Where is online introduction? Sorry, information on a website. The next one, editing. Let's listen.
It was really informative and very user-friendly. I learned a lot from it.
And then the editing?
For that, the association put me in touch with someone who works for one of the big movie companies, and I...
Okay. For editing, what happened? He has got a chance to meet a famous editor who has already been working for a big movies. An experienced editor was facilitated by the association to him for editing. Please listen once again.
It was really informative and very user-friendly. I learned a lot from it.
And then the editing?
For that, the association put me in touch with
Association put me in touch with
someone who works for
someone who works. Association put me in touch with someone who works for big Hollywood movies.
one of the big movie companies.
Big movie companies. So association put me in touch with someone who works in movie companies.
From it.
And then the editing?
For that, the association put me in touch with someone who works for one of the big movie companies, and I went down to the studio and sat with him in front of his who works for one of the big movie companies. It was really informative and very user-friendly. I learned a lot from it.
And then the editing?
For that, the association put me in touch with someone who works for one of the big movie companies, and I went down to
Someone who works for big movie companies.
the studio and sat with him
Okay, he went to there and sat with
in
him.
front of his computer for a day, learning how to cut and paste and deal with the soundtrack and so on.
So was that all?
No, I didn't include this in my draft report, but I had to design the cover for the DVD as well, the lettering and everything.
Have you done
Editing we haven't matched. Experienced people. Meeting professional filmmaker. D. That's D. That's D. Hey, for casting. I think I have written wrongly. It's not D casting. Editing professional filmmaker. Let's listen. Casting, manager. Support from the manager. Sorry. I've wrongly written. For casting, the manager make some workers available to act in his movie. Right? Who he was reporting to. So helpful. She made sure some of the workers are on their time offs and they acted on this. They make sure that they act in this particular training film of museum employees. Casting is G. Sorry, I have written. Editing is D. He has, the association put him in touch with one of touch with someone who is working for one of the big Hollywood companies. So big experienced people, that is D. And finally designing the DVD cover.
done any of that sort of design work before?
No, but I did a rough draft and then talked it through with a couple of my mates, and they gave me some more ideas. And when I'd finished it, I showed it to the people who worked at the
His friends
association,
helped him, right?
and they gave me some more ideas, the lettering and everything.
Have you done any of that sort of design work before?
No, but I did a rough draft and then talked it through with a couple of my mates.
And sorted through from couple of my mates. Mates means friends. Mates.
And they gave me some more ideas. And when I'd finished it, I showed it.
Support the idea. So friends have supported in this DVD card. Friends. Advice from friends. Mates. He hasn't mentioned friends. He mentioned MATS. Mates. You must know the articulation, pronunciation. Right? These are the correct answers. Please check once again yourselves for 1 minute whether you have got the same. Buddies, have you followed everything? Yes. 28 to 30. 28, 29, 30. There are only 3. Okay, let's continue.
to the people who worked at the association, and they really liked it.
Excellent.
Last one is he has got support from his friends, right? And for 28, 29, 30, one word only, try to understand.
Now listen and answer questions 28 to 30.
Now, as well as your own draft report,
Stewart's work placement benefits to the central. Okay, he has got work placement or benefits to the, okay, what is his work and benefits to the, okay, how his training video is helpful to Central Museum Association or something. His understanding of the association, okay, as he make the video, he was able to understand the association's association's structure, values, right? Something of that sort. If we do a video about a museum, Central Museum Association, right, for a Central Museum Association, obviously we work on its details, its structure and all. Obviously that make us to understand how it works and how things are going to work in that museum, right? Yeah. His understanding of associations, structure, associations, working, dedication, something like that. I need a noun here. The reduce in expense, increased cooperation generally between workers. Association is there, no? Employees. You might listen either workers or employees or team members, something of that sort. This is also a kind of noun. Continuous dash, which led to a better product. Continuous support. For better product, what we need is continuous support, continuous support, continuous knowledge sharing. Okay, what kind of continuous quality that can lead to better product? Continuous knowledge sharing, continuous support, continuous encouragement, continuous exhaustion, sorry, right? Exhaustion, I mean encouragement. These things can definitely lead to better product. Let's listen.
I've also received some written evaluation from the association on the work you did.
Okay, he has already submitted his video and association has evaluated his video. Okay, the draft is with her. She is going to talk about it. Kind of progress report is going to be explained by her, right? And she may raise some questions about it. Stewart has to answer.
During your placement, and how it was of benefit to them. I noticed that you haven't included anything on that in your report yet.
How my project benefited the association, you mean? So, do I have to include that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
in his draft, he hasn't included how this particular movie making for museum benefited him. Okay, how benefited him? How benefited these videos, these movie making to him? And also benefits to Central Museum maybe next.
let's think. I suppose if I hadn't made the film for them, they'd have had to get an outside company to do it. But because I was actually working for the association, I'd got much more of a feeling for what they're...
What he said actually, I missed it.
My project benefited the association, you mean? So, do I have...
My project's benefits to the association. What he said, Ray?
Now listen and answer questions 28 to 30.
Now, as well as your own draft report, I've also received some written evaluation from the association on the work you did during your placement and how it was of benefit to them. I noticed that you haven't included anything on that.
Okay, written evaluation has mentioned how his video is beneficial for association. In the evaluation, it is the part. But he has come up with another one, another idea like.
That in your report yet?
How my
Okay, he hasn't included. Okay, in his report also, how this video is going to be beneficial for him. That is missing in his report.
project benefited the association, you mean? So, do I have to include that?
Yes.
Well, let's think. I suppose if I hadn't made the film for them, they'd have had to get an outside company to do.
Okay, if he hadn't done this particular video, they obviously hire another company to do it. That's what he said.
It. But because I was actually working for the association,
So as I already working for this association,
I'd got much more of a feeling for what
I got a much more kind of feeling.
their aims are.
Okay. So in the association has actually given evaluation for his video as he has submitted his video, but in his draft he hasn't included the conclusion or benefits that he has got on making this video. Okay, that video not only beneficial for the association but also beneficial for him, right? Okay, he has to include benefits due to museum. Okay, how he has beneficial or something, right? Okay, so he's saying if they hadn't okay, if they hadn't indicated me to do this movie, this film for the training of employees of this museum, the association might hire any other company to do it. Okay, but as I am a worker, as I have already been associating with them, so I can understand their aims. I have expected that structure or something. He said their aims. I clearly knew their aims.
To do it. But because I was actually working for the association, I'd got much more of a feeling for what their
Okay, he has got much more like a feeling. This is the benefit for him.
aims are.
What the association's aims are. So just write down aim. You can write aims. That's also okay.
Things like their responsibility for the conservation of the exhibits. I don't think an outside company would have had that understanding. They'd have been more detached.
Right.
If they had hired a outside company, they would always be detached. They wouldn't have understood the aims of association as much as I understood. That's what he said.
Right. And the association also said that because of your background, you had a good idea of where to go to get the best deal for the equipment you needed. They said the saving in expense made it worthwhile, even though sourcing it took quite a bit of time.
Okay, association written evaluation of his work has also mentioned that he expended really less by purchasing a good deal of purchasing good equipment in lesser cost.
Time.
Yes, that's true.
The association also said making the film had a very positive effect in getting staff to work together more.
Okay, positive effort to among the staff, right? Between staff members, or simply you may write staff. Among the workers, employees, as we have expected, that is staff again.
Also said making the film had a very positive effect in getting staff to work together.
Okay, a positive effect making the workers getting the work together.
It took quite a bit of time.
Yes, that's true.
The association also said making the film had a very positive
Making a film had a very positive
effect in getting staff to work together more
more
closely.
closely. Okay. So it has increased cooperation staff between staff.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's good. And certainly, people weren't afraid to tell me what they thought about it as I was making it, so I was able to get lots of feedback at
I was able to get a lots of feedback
every stage.
every
That was useful for me, but it also meant the final product worked better for them.
Can you think of any other benefits?
Well, I don't think they'd really thought out what they'd do with the film once it was made. I made quite a few suggestions for the distribution, other people we could send it to, as well as museum staff.
Yes, they mentioned that. OK, good. Well, it sounds like they certainly...
That is the end of section 3. You now